I am very excited to finally be online. All right, so this should have been live already, but had a little technical difficulties. But I'll just get into it. Today with me, I have Liz J. Simpson, and she is a phenomenal woman, I'd say. She is a speaker, she's an author, and she's also an activist for women. Um, just an activist for women. I connected with Liz through a Facebook page and an initiative she started on domestic violence. It's a 10-week conversation. And I'm really glad to have her here chatting with me today about relationships. I'm Kalana. I'm very glad that you're tuning in. And just enjoy the conversation. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to send an email to Liz or to myself. So, Liz, thank you for agreeing to join me in this conversation about shedding relationships that fail to serve. Tell me a little
Yes.
bit about yourself.
Sure, Carlana. I just want to first thank you for inviting me and for, supporting the domestic violence awareness cause and being an advocate for women where you are, and then also for inviting me on this conversation to talk about a different angle of the topic of toxic relationships and how do we separate or shed ourselves from relationships that aren't serving us. You did a lovely introduction. I am a speaker, writer, and a life coach. So really my focus is I have a passion, I have a heart to serve women's empowerment through self-discovery. So I help women to really, for lack of a better term, find themselves. I like to say I'm a catalyst for inner evolution, where I kind of help you to align with your authentic self so you can thrive. So that's who I am, and I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for accepting the invitation. So, she gave a really good piece about herself, and I just want you to just enjoy this conversation. She and I, we spoke briefly before, and as I said before, we're going to be talking about shedding relationships that fail to serve. The angle we're looking at is all relationships. So we're not just talking about a marital relationship, we're also talking about business relationships, even relationships that we are as women have with ourselves and other women. I felt it was sort of necessary to have this conversation. It was birthed out of a personal experience that I had, and I was looking at this relationship from the angle of possibly having to do some shedding myself. I was in the process of doing a bit of rebranding for one of my websites, and I had consulted with someone I worked with in the past to, to help me get it going in the right direction. I do design in my regular day business, but I think that I get myself so attached to what I'm doing for myself, it's hard to really be objective and pull away. So I brought this woman in because we've worked together in the past. And she does really great work, really, really great work. During the process, though, of engaging her and trying to get that design off the ground, the relationship started to feel very uncomfortable. She was very not communicative. She had flat out said that she wasn't going to do some of the things that I had asked her to do. And we kind of got to a point where it was quite contentious. And at the end of it, I had to basically say, I'm not going to be pursuing this project with you. And I eventually shift gears and found someone who did a phenomenal job. But it made me consider why I wanted to work with her and why I felt the need to hold on to that work relationship, even though it wasn't working. It's not the first time we did a project together. And each time I work with her, I feel very icky. You know, I feel like I'm actually pimping or compromising myself in a sense because I am working with someone who I know does not respect me, does not value my beliefs. She and I are polar opposites in many ways. She could be quite contentious to deal with, but for me, I just was stuck on the fact that she did a good job, and I was always pleased with the end result. And from there, I sort of went to a deeper sort of thinking, and I started looking at other relationships that we hang on to as women that don't serve us. So Liz is very vocal about relationships and being authentic. It's part of her brand, and I thought she would be just the ideal person to join me in this conversation on sharing relationships that fail to serve. So let's hear what you have to say on the whole holding on to people and holding on to relationships that aren't really going well and taking us in the right direction.
Sure, sure. I love that you were so transparent and talked about the process of, dealing with this person that you've done business with, and you're not feeling good about it. You don't feel respected. You don't feel valued. It sounds like a part of it is you're asking for things. They're not even meeting the needs that you're asking for. But in the same time, you have a financial relationship with this person. The idea is I'm paying you for a service for you to deliver on a product. So I love that you took the time and said, wait a minute, there's something about this that I don't like, and I deserve to be valued, so maybe I need to sever this relationship. And for myself especially, when I decided to be a full-time entrepreneur, that was one of the things that was important to me is I wanted my personal and my professional life to be in alignment. I want it to be me, and I wanted to exhibit and embody my core values and principles in all walks of my life. I didn't want to wear one hat during the day at work and wear a different hat when I get off work. So it's important for me to be authentic and to therefore have relationships and to do business with whom I can see mutually beneficial values, mission, principles, or what have you. So I think that is important. But the first step is us. The first step is to be clear on who am I? What do I value? What am I passionate about? What causes do I rally around? What is my worth? What do I expect? What do I bring to the table? And what do I expect others to bring to the table when they do business with me? And then it's important for us to stick to that. And if someone's not holding up their end of the bargain when it comes to like a business relationship, like the one you just shared, to say, wait a minute, I bring value to the table. If you're not going to respect me and value me, then there are other people that I can find to connect with who will value me. So it always comes back to us, our relationship with ourselves. However, if you don't know your own value, if you don't know the value of your own time, if you don't know the value of who you are as a person, it's really hard to demand others to recognize that value as well. But I think that's great that you had that conversation and decided, hey, this is not serving me.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because I think as women, we tend to hang on to things that don't work for us. I've recently started doing what I call story coaching. So I work with women to get the stories that they carry within out. And we also address certain things as writing to heal and telling our story. So many of us have had people tell us who we are and define us and tell us our stories, that some women are really empowered and are blown away by the fact that they could take pen, put it on paper, and write their story. And one of the themes that I see currently, and this is fresh in my mind because I just came off a workshop I did over the weekend on that sort of writing. One of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of women, we don't know who we are. We don't really understand the inner value that we have. We don't even know what our core values are. And it's so easy to take everything that is sent to you when you don't even have a definition or a standard of what's acceptable or not. And I think just getting people to write these things out, it gets the thinking process going. So I'm like, who am I? What do I deserve? Why am I in this relationship? Could be work, it could be otherwise. How is this helping me grow? How is this not serving me? And I think through the writing process, they're able to see, well, hey, I need to do things differently. I need to reevaluate some of my relationships. And I think that, as you well said, it comes from knowing who we are and being authentic. Because if I know who I am, I'm not going to allow anyone to treat me that way. I'm not going to let you feel that because you're a great designer that you can walk over me and you could disregard my feelings, that you can talk to me in a way that is not just unprofessional, but I mean downright rude, And it's simple as that, because someone might say, well, hey, this isn't a big deal. This isn't a husband or this isn't a life partner. But it's the little things that we accept that over time help kind of lay a groundwork, so to speak, of the things that we allow into our lives. And I think that this discussion is important because when we look at shedding, we are not necessarily saying, "Hey, I'm cutting you off. I'm not talking to you anymore." But we sort of take power and control, and we decide, "Well, hey, I'm not accepting this. I'm not letting this in, and I'm putting a filter."
Yeah.
So it's really useful that we, open our minds to, re-looking or rethinking and even reworking and redefining. Oh, I'm using a lot of reads now. The relationships that we engage in. So
I love it.
let me hear your bit because you do a lot of work with women. So let me hear your take on that.
Sure. I love the quote that says, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And it's so true in life.
Yeah.
So you talk about your tolerance for relationships, I guarantee, is going to be across the board. So it's understanding how I do one thing is how I do everything. So if I'm allowing people to disrespect me or mistreat me when I'm bringing money to the table, in what other relationships is that type of toxicity showing up, right? So in what
Yeah.
other relationships am I allowing myself to be undervalued because it's a trend, right? And I love that you talk about the story, having people, analyze their life, journal, and use that as a reflection time to see, okay, what's the root of this? Why is this showing up? And when we talk about self-discovery or finding yourself, people really make it all fluffy. But it's being
Yes.
real, right? It's like this whole like mystical phantom people create, but it's honestly just being real with yourself, right? So I'll give you, okay, and I'll try to think of a way that won't come off as harsh, right? So if I have a girlfriend that I've been friends with for 20 years and she mistreats me and I don't put my foot down, what could be going through my head? I may not put my foot down because I might be like, you know what, she's known me my whole life. She knows me for me and she's loved me and accepted me. So therefore I owe her, and maybe in new relationships, people won't love me the same. So I'm holding on to this idea of an unhealthy love because I'm worried about scarcity, right? So a lot of times I talk about abundance mentality versus a scarcity mentality. The abundance mentality is understanding that the greatest energy that's ever existed is flowing through me. I'm connected to the greatest power. I'm deserving of all things. I'm deserving of abundance. And therefore, I want to move the toxic or bad relationships out of my life so I can get to the good ones, right? And I'm sorry, there's an airplane. Sorry about that. So a
Sorry.
lot of times, a lot of times we hold on to toxic relationships and they get in the way of us ever getting to healthy relationships, right? The blessing could be like, to give the
Yeah.
example of the person you contracted. Yes, she's good, but guess what? The world is full of abundance. There's thousands of phenomenal people who are graphic designers, web designers, whatever it is. So if you're not treating me right in this relationship, let's go ahead and sever ties, because there's probably someone who's better for you, and I'm sure there's someone better for me, and that way I can get to that person. Or even when we talk about dating relationships, right? So I hold on, I'd rather deal with the hell I know than to deal with the hell I don't know, right? So
Yeah,
that's kind of
I
the
hear that
idea.
a lot from women. I hear that, I think, too often. And again, it goes back to, I think, two things: fear, and as you said before, scarcity. And probably they work hand in hand, I suppose, because we did this process over the weekend, and we looked at some of the things that we tolerate. And I actually did a whiteboard example as to how the mental process works. And one of the examples we use is that I tolerate this relationship because I went through a process. And then at the root of it, it was simply the fear of being alone. And that is also like the scarcity thing. So it could be a fear of not finding somebody who can deliver a good job, in my case, who is also quite affordable, And in, let's say, in a lot of relationships, it's not finding someone who could click and connect with me, or not finding someone who can understand me. And by the way, these are lies that we often tell ourselves, right? Because if a relationship isn't serving you, there has to be better. And if there is no better, then you are good enough alone on yourself, because only you can give you the best, right? So I think it goes back to us, as you rightfully said, really examining the process and, coming to a place where, we really break it down. Why do I tolerate this? Why? Why do I feel that this is best for me? And as I said initially, we're looking broader than intimate relationships, but we are all affected by the relationships we have, whether it's work, whether it's private, even the relationships that we have with ourselves. So that was a really great point, I must say.
My pleasure. One of the things I did, we talked about earlier, in my past life, I was a domestic violence victim. And after I removed myself from that toxic relationship, I had a string of a couple toxic relationships after that. And they weren't abusive, they just weren't good, right? It was just like unhealthy, like something's not right. And so, one of the things I did that for me was transformational is I challenged myself to make a list of 50 things that I wanted in a man, and that was real easy. I was like, he got to be fine, he got to have this, he got to have that. But then the challenge was, what are 50 things that would be a deal breaker in a man? What are 50 things that if they showed up in the relationship would be deal breakers, and then hold myself accountable to that? And that was really hard. It's real easy to say, I want this, 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 and this. And it's really then difficult to challenge yourself and say, but what are the things that I am willing to count as deal breakers, that I will sever ties if this shows up, right? What are the things that I value myself enough to say that I won't deal with? So I challenge, even if it's not 50, because that was really hard. The blessing of that is that after I did that, when I met my husband, it was so flipping clear that he was meant for me. Because he fit my list, there was a mesh. I was so clear on what I wanted in a relationship and what I was looking for in a man. So it was very easy for me to see and appreciate him and then value him from the beginning, right? But we need to do things like that with all of our relationships. So whether it's in your business, it's 20 things that, I'm looking for when I do business with someone, and 20 things that would be deal breakers. If there's all these companies now, they talk about green initiatives or sustainable products, or it's kind of like buying a black diamond, right? There's this idea of, well, you don't want that diamond if it's a black diamond. It's the idea that there's a principle, there's something that's important to you, and you're willing to say, I won't cross that line. I won't do business with someone who does things like this. And those are the things we need to do for ourselves. Businesses and corporations do it all the time. That's why, a TV channel or an actor, say an actor does something, it's like does drunk driving. And then all of a sudden all these companies cut ties with them. And so corporations do it, but we as people don't define ourselves. We don't define our own relationships. And we need to follow that same motto and say, who am I? What do I value? And what are the things I'm not willing to deal with in my life, and sever ties? And the beauty of that is that when we do that, when we set those boundaries, we allow space for people who attract that same energy to magnetize towards us. And at the same token, those people that we sever ties with, we give them cause to do reflection on their own lives. Because they can say, you know what? Something I did ended that relationship, and it really meant something to her. So what's going on with me? And then they can work on themselves, right? So that's kind of my spiel on that. I'll get off my soapbox.
Yeah, those are great points. You were saying something, because we connected earlier, about a vibrational energy. Let's talk about that, because I think people need to hear about it.
Sure. So the universe, the earth, is made up of energy. Everything is energy, right? Matter, all of that. So with energy, you know, I talk about one of the best ways I can explain this is like when you sit next to someone and you're like automatically like, oh my gosh, like I love this person. I just met you, but I feel like we just vibe, right? Or you can
Right.
also go into a room and there's like the girl across the corner. You just like, oh, I don't like her. Like you have no basis whatsoever, but you're just like, I don't like this person, right? And it's an
Yeah.
energy. So we all emanate an energy from us. And so what happens
Mhm.
is, trying to think of best ways to explain this. So for instance, like a radio station, my favorite radio station is 107.5 in Chicago. That radio station is on 24/7. They have programming playing all the time. But the only time I hear that station is when I'm tuned in to 107.5, right? That's how energy
Right.
works. So when you vibrate or you emanate an energy of gratitude, abundance, love, appreciation, wholeness, then you're tuned into a frequency, and those who live their life at that same energy, that same frequency, they're attracted to you, right? Because you guys are energizing at the same level, right? On another token, when we talk about energy, the only thing faster than the speed of light is the speed of thought, right? So our thoughts are energy. So those things that you try to hide, I always say that you are communicating all the time, right? Even when you don't want to communicate. Your insecurities, what you really feel and think about yourself is always being communicated. And people think they can hide it, but as soon as you open your mouth, all your insecurities fall out, right?
It's like you're transmitting it 24/7.
Yes, you are. And people can sense that. So when we have those insecurities, those thoughts are an energy, and people connect with that. That's how it's so mind-boggling when we talk about domestic violence and abuse. And the statistics show that if someone is a child of an abusive relationship, there's normally two things that happen. They become an abuser or they become a victim of abuse. And you're like, how does that possibly happen? How is that a cycle? Because it's the thought. You know, that's how an abuser can find someone who's more prone to be okay with the abuse, right? Because our thoughts, our communication tells on ourselves, and we attract those things to ourselves, which is why then it's important for us to be honest, for us to do the work on our inner evolution. It's to do the work on who am I, what's the story that's attached to me right now, how do I rewrite that story, and how do I go forward in the next chapter of my life in a productive manner. And then that way we can attract more productive, more healthy relationships, and we can shed those toxic relationships and let those people do the work on themselves. Does that
That's a
answer?
great point. And one of the things I wanted to stress on too is that when we look at shedding, we're not necessarily talking about cutting people off. Like, I'm so done with you, you're dead to me, your history. We're not, it's not just always being so hard lined and putting that mark in the sand, so to speak. But one of the things with shedding is that I think with a new level of consciousness, we would inevitably start shedding some of our relationships. So let's just say I get a greater appreciation and an understanding of who I am. I know what I want. I know what I'll tolerate. I know where I'm going. I know what my core values are. I know me, right? I started examining some of my relationships. And I may realize that there are some relationships that are they're not ideal. I wouldn't call them toxic, but they need to probably be examined a bit closer. And I may decide that, hey, I need to set some barriers. I need to set some boundaries. I need to be clear about my expectations of this relationship. And I'll give an example out of my life. I recently had a meeting with a client yesterday. It's a new client, and we met in the most odd way, as I tend to meet clients. And we had a first business lunch date on Monday, and we had a follow up yesterday where we're supposed to sign off. And I'm very open about who I am. I think the beauty of surviving what I've survived is that it has made me a bolder woman. I am
Mm-hmm.
a survivor of domestic violence. My relationship ultimately ended when my husband put me in the hospital and I had to undergo surgery. And that's a toxic relationship for you if, if you didn't know. But
Yes.
Surviving that and coming up from that, it really made me do some introspection. And it's all well and good to sit and say, well, he hit me, he did this and that to me. But I have to look at myself too. I have to come to a place where I say, Kalana, you need to look on this area. You need to be very clear about what it is you don't expect and what you tolerate and what not. So I've done the work on myself. I'm a big advocate for writing. So I wrote it out, I put it on the wall where I can see it all the time. And I have my truths and my affirmations on the wall. And my truths are who I am, what I'm willing to accept, what I attract, what I do want. It's all there. Because sometimes we need to remind ourselves these things, especially if we have nobody to say, hey, you're great, hey, you're phenomenal. We need to do that. But what I have found is that I am so clear about relationships now that even if I transmit the signal, I love the example, the analogy of transmitting a signal. Even though I transmit the signal that I'm a bold woman, I'm a brave woman, and I'm an advocate for women and all of that jazz, I do recognize that people will test your boundaries, right? And it's at that point you realize how much you value the things that you say you believe in and you stand for. So I had that lunch yesterday, and this client, he hit on me, right? And I had to be very clear. Where in the past I would have ignored it and hoped that he didn't do it again, I had to be very definitive and say, I love what you do, and I would love to be a part of the growth of your business. I bring this to the table, and you present me an opportunity to test my knowledge and grow as a professional. And for me, I put a premium on that. And as much as I admire you as a person, I am not willing to go any further than a business relationship with you. And
I love that.
I don't know. I didn't care for how he took it at the time, but for me, I felt again that it was me being very clear, being very defined, and potentially avoiding a relationship that could become toxic and that could become complicated. And I think we need to not just rush through life and rush through our day, but we need to get to the point where we sit and we examine the relationships that we're engaged in. They shape us, they shape our thinking, they shape our outlook on life. And we need to be really clear on them. At the same time, going back to the shut-in part, I do recognize that there are some relationships that they deserve a chance to, I wouldn't say you let them go definitively, but you really face. And as I was sharing with Liz earlier, I have a friend she's been a really amazing person to me. We met at a time where she was out of a relationship and I was in the separation process of my marriage. And at that time, I think we needed each other to the point where the daily calls were important, the weekly lunch dates were necessary. But as I began to grow and I became strengthened in myself, that relationship took a different turn, as did hers, because the beauty about it is that resilient women never stay broken forever. We keep trudging on it. And as we gained our strength, our relationship took a different turn where we were not so dependent, but we were standing back and sort of watching each other thrive and bloom, and appreciating that as well. And I've seen her go through some cycles in the past year. But we had a discussion over the weekend, and she said to me, I don't feel that you're there for me. You don't call me every day. You don't look out for me. And that really hurt me because I felt that the test of my love for you, the value of my friendship for you, does not lie on the frequency of a phone call or a lunch visit, but it can be measured in the way that I treat you. how I'm there for you. And I'm always there for her. She started a business venture recently. I was there weekly. I don't like the area, but I went anyway, right? Because
Mhm.
that's love in action. I can call you every day and say, yeah, go for it, do that business, but I never show up and support you. Okay? When that business didn't go well, she needed a job. I helped her find a job. And what I'm trying to say is that even in the shedding, we can not be up in someone's face to love them and to contribute to them. And she was measuring it on the frequency of the calls and the visits, and I was measuring it that along the lines of this is what I do, this is how I show that I care. And even in that, we need to be clear to people, because I had to basically say, I love you, I am here for you, you are phenomenal, you are amazing, you've been there for me, and I am on this journey where I need to spread my wings and grow. And you are on a journey as well, and I think you need to spread your wings and grow as well. But the thing about it, we may not always journey together, but I want to think we're all heading in a common direction of being the best versions of ourselves. And in this journey where I am striving to be the best Kalana that I can be, it might be a solitary journey. It might be a journey where I need you to be walking at my side, whatever direction or whatever path that journey takes me. I love you. I'm here for you. But I need space to breathe and grow. And I can't call you every week. And that is how the conversation went. And it was not good enough for her. And that is fine, because that is her truth. She spoke her truth. She wanted more. At this stage that I am as evolving as a woman and just coming back into who I am, because I've shared that toxic abusive relationship, I need room to grow. And she needed something else. So I've agreed to let her work through her stuff. I'm going to touch in with her occasionally, but I'm going to give her space to breathe because I need space to breathe. And
Mhm.
it brings me back to what I was saying. It's never a case of I'm divorcing you, as I've done in that abusive relationship, but it could be I recognize we're in different places or we want different things, or this is the path that I'm taking. I need this, I need that, or you need this and you need that. Let's give each other some breathing space. I think it's kind of important for our personal development as well. And I would dare say that when the people in our lives see that we are making that sort of stand, they appreciate us for it more. And it probably even pushes them to look at the way they live their lives too and maybe aspire to do things differently and be more reflective. I'm of the
I
soapbox now.
agree. No, you're fine. I love it. It's great. There's a few things that it made me think of. One of the things I was thinking about is, especially when you're on the journey of self-discovery and you're finding yourself and you're kind of relearning how to love yourself and appreciate yourself and value yourself. One of the beauties of that is when you've really evolved from that journey, you then get to see the common thread amongst us all, right? And so a lot of times the judgment subsides because as you forgive and have tenderness for yourself, you start to see and have compassion for others and their stuff. And you realize, like, you know what? They got some stuff they're dealing with, but guess what? So did I. And I may have dealt with mine, but time will tell when they deal with theirs. So you start to have compassion. And like you talked about, relationships vary, whether it's your spouse or a girlfriend or a business partner. There's seasons of our relationships, and relationships are about compromise ultimately, because you have two people who have two different passions, desires, loves, needs, wants, perspectives. And sometimes it's about compromise. It's, like you said, there was a time when both of you were like, hey, we're both hurting. I could really have, I need a shoulder to cry on, someone to go to lunch with me. I need companionship as I walk through this part of my journey. And then later it's like, oh, okay, we've kind of healed from that. You know what? I think I need space to figure out me, and I think you should have a little space to figure out you, right? And who knows, 6 months from now, y'all could be getting lattes every week at lunch again. But it's just, it's the, you know, it's the, it's the progression of the relationship. Another thing that's important that I was thinking about is we talk about love languages, and this is one of the things I do with my clients too, along self-discovery, is understanding your love language. Everyone has a different love language, and a lot of times it shows up in our communication. I spend a lot of time working with people with linguistics and communication and what they say. So, for instance, I'm a show me love person. Like, my husband teases me and calls me a kitten because I need the attention where, like, I'm cuddled up on you. I need affection. I need a kiss. You can say nothing to me, but he could wrap his arms around me, kiss me, and walk away, and I'll be like, all right, I'm loved, right? Because I'm a show me person. So he'll say, well, I did this, this, and this for you. But I go, but you haven't showed me you loved me, right? And then there's tell me people. There's people who, you know what, you don't have to do a whole bunch of stuff for me, but if you just call me every now and then, if you just tell me you love me, if you communicate with words, that's enough for them, right? So there's many different love languages, and it's understanding that with diversity, we each see love and we each perceive love in a different way in our relationships. So, and sometimes that's difficult to balance. You know, my best friend and I, we have different love languages. I'm more of an introvert, so I like solitary. I need my time. I can spend time with you, but after too much time with you, I'm going to get irritated, and I need to go back in my shell and recuperate, because that's where my power comes from. It's from introspection, right? She's an extrovert. She's all on me. She's like, why don't we talk every day and all the time? And so it's finding the balance. I know that's how she perceives love, so I go out of my way at times to show her love in that way and to be there. But then, because it's a balance, because it's about compromise, she knows, all right, it's been a couple months, I haven't heard from Liz. I know she loves the ever-living mess out of me, right? But I know this is how she recuperates. And so she might call me and say, hey, how you doing? And I might come out of my shell and be like, all right, she needs me. But that's the balance. And we can't do that unless we communicate and know who we are. This is what I need. This is what love looks like for me. And then finally, I'll get off my soapbox. We need to learn how to communicate from sincerity and truth, right? And that's a big part of the problem, because I'm trying to think how this will go. Sometimes we will pick fights about stuff that is not the issue. And normally it's because we don't really know what the issue is. So, you know, you might have a girlfriend who's like, oh my gosh, you know, you think you're better than me, you don't call me, you don't appreciate me, you don't love me. And none of those things really are the issue. And it could just be, hey, you know what, I'm not feeling valued right now because the way I perceive love is someone to talk to me or spend time with me, and you haven't spent time with me and I don't feel good about that. And then if you communicate in truth and sincerity, then we can deal with that. But the other mess, the drama, the stuff that has nothing to do with the real issue doesn't help with solutions. So I love that. And yes, and you're right, as far as shedding, you know, like I was telling you in our previous conversation, there are people that I haven't talked to in 10 years, and I'll send a text and I'll say, hey, I'm thinking of you, love you. And they'll be like, yes, I know if I need you, you're there. Boom. Relationship's still intact, but I'm not always talking to you every 5 minutes. And the truth of the matter is, if you have enough relationships, you can't talk to everybody every 5 minutes. You should have enough relationships where you have people you haven't talked to in 5 years, and you know if you pick up the phone, they'll support you.
Yeah, and that has been, you know, the goal for me. Well, that was my hope, that we could evolve to that state. Anybody who considers me a friend, or who I've been a friend to, know that I'm the type of person. Similarly, I need room to grow. I need my space. We had a family reunion about 2 Sundays ago. It was amazing. But after a while, I had to sort of slip away and just come sit and just be for myself, to process and be with it. And I love the fact that they get me. So it wasn't like, oh, she's being antisocial. It is just the way I'm wired. And one of the things about me is that I'm very clear about who I am. And I thought that she, understanding that, would know that, hey, I need that space. We've gone through phases where I had to say to her, listen, I'm taking a few days off. I need I need time to be me. I need time to just relax and be for myself. I need to process the things in my head. I need to put them out on paper. And she would just call, and I'd have to turn the phone off, and I'd have to say, this makes me feel like you don't value the time that I need to develop myself. And so I've been clear, very clear on communicating my needs, because I think once we start communicating our needs and and our expectations in all of our relationships, it makes it so much easier to just navigate the relationship. We aren't doing too many, having too many experiences where we're sitting and how do I approach this? How do I deal with this relationship? How do I shed? How do I permanently shed, or do I temporarily sever? A lot of times we get to that place where we have to ponder how we are going to approach these things, because we were never really clear about how we wanted to be engaged in the relationship from day one. So for me, I understand that the importance of just having that time to process. And I also understand the value in what you do, because you're getting women to think at a deeper place, not just a surface thing, but sit and really think about who I am. Because who I am is such a deep question. You know, if I know who I am, I know what I want, I know what it takes to get me there, I know what I'll tolerate, I know what I can compromise with. But I think most of us are so busy in the business of living, we just sort of run through our day. We don't ponder, these thoughts, and we don't really live a reflective life. We don't really live an examined life. I think I read a quote somewhere that said an examined life is not really worth living. I can't credit it to the source. I don't recall who. But, conversations like these, I hope, can be the pause that we all need to really sit down and pull back and, think about our relationships and the direction that we want to take them. And it could be a permanent shedding, because sometimes too, I'm going to liken this whole relationship thing to a tree. Okay. I have like a really nice tree right out my window. It it emits a perfume at night. I think it's called Lady of the Night or something like that. But every couple months, I have to prune that tree. That tree gets out of control. It touches the electric wires. And that tree that I love so much because of the perfume, it could knock my power out. It could burn my house down if the wires get entangled with the wooden portion of the house. So I liken a relationship to a tree that needs pruning, because from time to time you may say, hey, I need to trim back on this branch because it will help with the overall of the tree, and it will help with the overall beauty of the tree, whatever reason. But then there comes a time when you have to cut the tree down, where you have to divorce your abusing husband. And, so I kind of, pull different things and, hey, relationship, that's free out there. Whatever you do to sort of bring perspective, that's fine with me. But I think it's really important that we sort of, take that pause, look at our relationships, see how we can improve them, see how we could prune them. And when we're pruning, I think it's important to let people know why we're doing what we're doing, because some people might take that to mean that you're acting better than them or you're acting all funny. And in the process of us being the best versions of ourselves and living our truth, it's so important that we don't hurt people, because they are also on their journey, and we might be a little ahead or a little backward, but we don't want the things that we do, even though we do them for ourselves, to affect others negatively if we can avoid it. So in the whole process of pruning and shedding, we say, listen, this is what I need to do. I need to pull back for a while. I'm having issues with this relationship because of XYZ. I feel the need to put a space between us. I just don't go cold turkey and never call you back, never email you. It's not the way you handle someone. People are emotional beings. They have feelings. So that's one strategy I like to take. But then there are some relationships that you really need to cut them off and you really need to go cold turkey on them. Um, but even so, I think, this is just me, someone else might see differently. Um, I think even in the case where I had to end my marriage, I had to be clear as to why I was. I didn't feel that you respected me, you loved me, and I felt that, if I'm an extension of you, because as women, the biblical concept of the woman coming from the man. If you treat me this way, then you can't even love yourself because I am an extension of you, more or less. So, I think that's my 2 cents.
I love
I have
it.
to put a pause because I'd probably just be going on forever. But I'm going to just stick a pin there and see if you have anything that you want to contribute as well.
Oh, you're fine. I love this. Looking forward to, using this footage and to the individuals who hear this, and hopefully this will help inspire them to analyze their relationships and see what's not serving them in their life and where they are in their journey. I like the tree analogy. The one thing I was going to add to that, that the beauty of a tree is the power is in its roots, right? But the roots are below the ground. And that's how it is with relationships. Our relationships are fruits of our relationship with ourselves. How we see the world around us is through the lens of how we see ourselves. So the root of the tree is you. And what grows above the ground are going to be the fruits, and it's going to be a reflection of how you see yourself and how you treat yourself. So it's important to be cognizant of the soil that we're planting the seeds in. It's important for us to look at the root of the tree. And then that way, when things are getting out of hand above ground, we can say, well, what's going on below ground that needs to be dealt with so I can have more healthy relationships in my life? So I love that. It's been a pleasure talking to you, Carlana, and I think this has been incredible.
It has been incredible. So I would like to thank everyone who's going to watch this video. Thanks for viewing it. It will be on the blog as well, so there's a link there if you'd like to send in a question or a comment. You can do so. I'll add Liz's details as well. So thanks again for watching. Hope to bring you more content like this in the future with other like-minded women as well. And have yourself a fabulous day. Thank you and bye-bye. Say bye, Liz.
Bye!
Bye.